Guys, we had a phenomenal interview several months ago with Brad Huddleston about digital cocaine, and he's back with his book, Digital Rehab. Guys, this is so important for us as parents to get this right with our kids. You're going to be blown away by the things we discuss about the digital world that our kids are inundated in. Hang on for the ride of your life. Men in the Arena Army, we salute you. Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Men in the Arena podcast. This is Spotify's #1 podcast for Christian men. I'm Jim Ramos, your host and guide for today's show, leading you to your best version in the stress bubble of life and beyond. Before I introduce you to our guest of the show today, let me walk you through a hero story that I received actually yesterday morning from Jonathan Bonds on Instagram. And he writes this: "Hey, Jim and crew, thanks for all you're doing. Finding your podcast and joining Garrett and Jeff's group." So Jeff and Garrett are national team captains. He says, "This has helped me immensely. I was a Christian man who was just going through the motions, going to church, reading the Bible, praying when it was convenient. You guys have helped me get on a narrow path, trusting and seeking our Savior daily, stepping up to lead and grow my family in the Lord and where He wants us in His ultimate will. So thank you." Man, that's so awesome, Jonathan. Thanks so much for that great word of encouragement. Guys, remember, when we use your hero story or your man law, which we'll share at the end of the podcast, hit us up at info@meninthearena.org with your physical email address, and we'll send you some swag. Guys, I'm excited to bring my buddy on. We had him on just a year ago, but he's come out with another book. And man, this stuff is like cutting edge. There's nobody out there that I know that is doing what he's doing. So I want to introduce you to my friend Brad Huddleston. He's the author of The Dark Side of Technology, Digital Cocaine, which was a game changer for me, and now his latest book, Digital Rehab. Brad is an ongoing collaboration with the Bureau of Market Research and its neuroscience division at the University of South Africa. He's been married to his beautiful bride, Beth. How many years now, Brad?
31.
Oh, you got 31. Me by one, you sucker. Yeah. Okay. 31 years. They live in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, in the heart of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I'm pretty sure that's the place where guns were invented. But hey, how you doing, man? Great to have you on the podcast.
Hey, Jim, I just love you to bits, brother, and I really appreciate you having me back. I want to show you from the deer stand what these Blue Ridge Mountains look like. There's the sun coming up from the deer stand, and you can see the Blue Ridge there in the background. So,
well, hey, bro, I'm heading to Indiana tomorrow morning to speak at a church and kill an Eastern turkey, but I keep waiting for the invite to go kill a whitetail in the Shenandoah Mountains, man. So I don't know what your problem is.
You mean like one of these?
Yeah. Oh, no, I want his daddy.
Yeah. Well, look, I was just going to say, I was actually doe hunting, trying to fill up the freezer. It was a big bodied deer, but look at the tenderloin on that thing.
Oh, I mean, you know what? I got to stop right now. And I got to tell our guys listening, if you're listening to this audio, you guys need to go to YouTube, to the Men in the Arena podcast on YouTube and just see what he's showing me right now. So,
he was making, for those of you listening, he was making fun of my rackless buck. It wasn't really much to preach about. It was a big body deer though. Yeah. And then I showed the tenderloin. It was about 8 feet long. Okay. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was a doozy.
Well, it's funny, man. I was just talking to a guy last night. He killed this little buck. He's a great friend of mine. And I just laugh because guys are funny. Whenever they kill a little buck, it either had a big body or it was reverting.
Yeah.
Nobody ever says, "Man, I just killed this little buck. I had to get brown spray paint and spray the spots off it before I took it home to mama."
I know. But we cut the jawbone out because we're managing the deer here. Yeah. And I can't lie, it was only 2.5 years old. So
hey, my dad says you can't boil the horns. I'm gonna tell you what, a 2.5 buck is about as good eating as you can get.
Yeah, that's right. But I'll be honest with you. Our late season is coming up with a muzzle loader, and my goal is to get, 3 or 4 90-pound does. That's my favorite. And then, then just load the freezer up. So that's what.
All right. Well, I feel a men's retreat coming to Virginia, and I've got a muzzle loader that's itching to go do something. So hey, let's get into the show, man. So hey, our guys know who you are a little bit, but I'm gonna kind of not allow you to share your story because the guys know you. They can go back to our previous episode with you. I want to start off with a quote. Okay. You said this. You said, "Sadly, my global experience has shown me that most parents who see my presentations believe They and their children are the exceptions to almost everything I present. And then you said this, you said, I will repeat this a lot in this book. And then you finished up by saying, don't be one of these parents. So talk to us about why this is so troublesome and bothersome.
I have observed this. The reason why I said that so many times is because close friends, Jim, people that have actually helped me with my ministry, who have filmed for me or traveled and, been in the audiences or worked with me in various capacities, heard me speak numerous times. I go to their homes and I never judge them. I love them, but their kids are being raised on the tablets. They clearly think their child is, and they'll say crazy things like, "Oh, it's for educational purposes." And I clearly write about that too, the educational.
Yep.
So at some point they just believe that it's not, their children are not that bad. And every parent believes that. And I'm not putting parents down for believing that. What I'm just trying to do is open their eyes that your child is no different than the bad children. What I mean by bad, not behavior, I'm talking about the brain is soft. It's underdeveloped. It is going to damage. And there's a huge push in Silicon Valley amongst some of those guys. We covered this in Digital Cocaine, where Steve Jobs never even allowed his own children to use the iPad. And I have to tell parents, look, he loved his children, adored his children, not your children, his children. And the only thing he wants you to do is buy the stuff. Well, now in this new book, I have, followed up on that. There are one of the, and I'm paraphrasing here, one of the tech executives' wives said that the devil is in that phone. And I don't even think they're Christians. So they don't even a lot of those are withholding the phones or giving their kids dumb phones, which is a good alternative. Yes. So I've just observed family after family that I'm still close with. I don't put them down, Jim, but they are raising, every parent that I know who's been involved with my ministry or heard me over and over again are raising their children with phones and tablets and computers. They agree with everything that I say. So the conclusion obviously is they think their children, they're going to be immune to it.
Well, this is scary. So your book, Digital Rehab, this is not a light read. So Digital Cocaine is a book we can put in a dad's hands and he can rip through it and get some great tools. This book is technical. It's more of a textbook. And so I'm reading through this going, this is like the Bible of digital rehab. I mean, this is a phenomenal book. And so I just want to say that up front. So I want to, if a guy's like, I'm going to go grab this book, I'm like, grab it, but you better put your reading glasses on, bro, because this is going to be a master's level course. Yeah. So,
well, Jim, I also wanted to say I'm about 20 pages from revising Digital Cocaine.
Oh,
so yeah, it's going to be re-released. I'm working with my publisher. They might even pick it back up again because it's not finished. It's not run its course. So I went through and about 25 pages toward the end and just revising, updating some of the stats and things that were a little bit old, terminology that was old. Most of it's still very relevant. If you've bought the book recently, it's still there. But I just wanted to say that, we've been selling them as a combo because of that, and then giving the discount because of what you're saying.
Great idea. Well, yeah. So let me say this, Brad. So I have about once a week a porn expert reaching out to our ministry saying, hey, we want to come on your show. Man, we've had 20 guys, 30 guys about porn, but you're the only digital rehab guy out there. So because you're the only guy out there, when you get that Digital Cocaine remastered, let me know. We'll bring you back on and we'll just take a different angle because you're the only guy out there doing this that I know. And it's leading to porn. It's leading to all these other things. You said something early on in this podcast. I want to go back and check my facts here. Did I hear you say soft brain?
Yeah. Well, I'm using, layman's terminology. What we're talking about when it comes to children, depending on the age, their brains are not fully developed.
Yeah.
None of ours is fully developed until we're 25, but you're talking about what they call sponge brain. That's a real term. Where when they're very young, they're taking in around the age of 3 and 4 and 5. You can teach them multiple languages and they'll get the accent perfect. And at no other time will they get the accent perfect. And their little brains will not compartmentalize those languages. They'll get them all mixed up. And then the brain goes modular when they're a little bit older, somewhere between 6 and 8. They start to really develop. Their final personalities are starting to come out. And miraculously, which you and I know why, but the languages will all go in the box. The German will go in the German box, the English in the English box. But their brains are in an extreme, Jim, an extreme state of development. Between the ages of 0 and 3, their brains will triple in size, and the neuronic activity, I don't know if that's a word, but all the neurons that are growing and pruning and all those things that go on it's unbelievable what's happening. And what we're doing with these devices, we are messing that process up, and we're crushing creativity because we never allow them to become bored. And what is scaring me is there's no evidence that I can find that they can fully regain that. In other words, once you miss that window where, their creative development is happening and all the brain growth is happening, and they go from sponge brain to modular, because we're overstimulating it with too much dopamine and other chemicals that cause the brain to not be in homeostasis. We have a bunch of children who are bored all the time because they are anhedonic. We covered that before, where their brain has become numb, and then they have to have super stimulation even to get a grunt out of them. And they're not interested in anything except the screen. And so what is scary is that we don't know, once you do rehabilitate them, we know that the brain will repair to a great degree. Anybody can. There's always hope. And plus, if you're a Christian, there's always hope because Jesus heals. So I don't want to leave everybody in despair. I'm talking about, back to your original question, when I talked about the sponge brain, where the brain is fragile, and it doesn't have the resilience that an adult's brain has. And you have to be very careful during that time not to overstimulate it. And of course, children who are abused, we all know what happens later in life. That stuff sticks with you because of post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that. So what I was saying was our little app with Peppa Pig and all this sort of stuff is not good for them. Yeah. And you shouldn't let them have it.
So in your book, Digital Rehab, the reason I asked about soft brain, I didn't know if there was a correlation between that and a soft human adult, because we're producing the softest generation of adults that we've ever seen in the history of the world. And I didn't know if that was directly affected by their digital minds and the dopamine dumps.
Well, it is, but that's more of a developmental thing where, Jim, how many kids do we have that don't have fathers?
Yeah.
And they're soft for that reason, because they've been in front of a screen. They've picked up the values of LGBTQ. They've been taught, feminism, where the man is almost subservient to women. And you look at all the commercials. My wife gets so angry, Jim, because every commercial that has a man and a woman, the man is made to be a buffoon, and the woman is the superior one. I was watching in the gym this morning, this woman just beating the crap out of this guy. And I'm thinking, man, I would slug her. I wouldn't slug a woman. Don't misunderstand. I'm saying if we got in the ring and we were actually putting the gloves on, and, it's portrayed that men and women are equal, and I would not get in the ring with a woman. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying.
I hear what you're saying, though.
If you were to do that, she would get crushed. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, it would. I look at like Angelina Jolie in these movies. I go, I would destroy her. Yes, I would never touch a woman, but I'm like, this portrayal, it's not about the woman. It's about the weak, soft portrayal of the man, but that's a whole nother podcast.
It's another.
So talk to me about this phrase, digital detox. And after explaining what that is, you said in your book, after explaining what digital detox is, I recommend you apologize to your children. That was, knowing you as a person, I thought, that is funny. That is Brad Huddleston, baby. So talk to me about digital detox and the parents' role in this.
We know how long it takes for the brain to begin to heal. And this is where, I can't be a motivational speaker. I can't just wave some Joel Osteen wand over this thing and smile a lot and it makes it all better. It just doesn't work.
With your perfect hair.
Sorry. Yeah, that's exactly right. And teeth, because I'm from the Appalachian Mountains. Nobody.
Yeah, they don't have them there.
That's right. So I'm just preempting you.
I'm just messing with you.
I know that you are. I'll mess right back.
You got good teeth, man. They're nice and shiny. You're good. You're good.
I just come from the dentist today, actually.
I can tell,
had them
man.
all fixed up. Yeah, but they were my aunts, but they did some tweaks in there and made
They
them
were
fit.
your aunt's teeth?
Right. Yeah, they're my aunt's teeth. Yeah.
Yeah, that cedarwood tooth, that looks like a real tooth, man.
Hey, don't go there, okay? It hurts because she was a sweet lady to me. No, so what were we talking about? No,
I don't know, man. Digital rehab.
It's for
Digital
the parents'
detox.
role. Yeah. What happens is the brain, as we've discussed in the previous podcast, it becomes anhedonic. Basically, what's happening is the dopamine levels have created resistance in the brain or tolerance. So you're addicted, which means you've built up, your brain's gotten used to it. And so in order for us to continue to be stimulated, you have to do more and more and more and more. Your head stays down longer.
Yes.
With the video games, the kids don't come out of the bedroom. The parents just give up and take the food to them. And it's because they're at this point, they're addicted. And if they get away from it for even a short period of time, they begin to have withdrawals. The top symptom with digital is a tantrum or anger. So you take the phone away from the kid and they throw the fit. So here's what happens. If you're going to detox, we have to then repair the tolerance that has been built up. The dopamine levels are causing the tolerance. So you have to go without it. And then the brain begins to repair. Now that process is painful. It's just like cocaine and heroin addiction. So there's going to be withdrawals. There's going to be a physical pain. There's going to be a more emotional pain than anything. But the good news is, unlike the traditional drugs where you have to really be careful and be monitored, no one dies from this one unless they kill themselves, which a lot of people do. When the parents take away the phone, they will kill themselves. But in terms of repair, there's always repair. But here's the problem. It takes a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks for that to happen. And during that time, you cannot have any technology, including television. You have to plan this. So in the book, I lay out all the scenarios that I can where, your job requires it or the kids' school requires them to use it. So obviously you can't just read this book and do it all of a sudden. You have to plan. I give strategies for planning. It has to be during vacations. You have to ask for extra time off, whatever you have to do. And it has to be done as a family. It used to be, Jim, you might have one person in the family who gets addicted to alcohol or some other drug, and you send that person off for rehabilitation, a detox. Well, the problem is the average age of a video gamer globally now is 35. So there are more dads who are gaming than children. Yes. And the mothers are just as addicted to social media as the daughters. So you cannot, as a parent, tell the children, that's right. And it's because they've been on social media longer. So you can't tell the kid, do as I say, not as I do. The parents have to lead, which that's a whole nother topic. We need parenting courses. And I mean that we desperately need parenting courses. Parents ask their children what they want to do. Yeah. They don't tell them what they do. But I still have to be scriptural where the parents need to be the parents, not their friend.
Absolutely.
And so they lead the family. So here's where the apology comes in. This is where the parents have purchased the devices. They purchased the game controllers. They purchased the phones. They're not evil people, Jim. They don't know what they've done. They did it in innocence, and God's not mad at them at all. No parent that I know of has purposely given brain damage to their children. No educator who implemented one-to-one laptop and tablet programs at the school set out to give brain damage. These were unintended consequences, much like the doctors who used to promote cigarettes. And then all of a sudden people got cancer, and those were the unintended consequences. So now we have all these emotional problems. We have anxiety disorders off the charts, digitally induced ADHD and ADD. Now we've got cutting and suicide off the charts strictly because of digital addiction. So what I tell parents is this: it starts with you, and what you have to do. A lot of parents, what they do when they see me speak, they want to go home and just immediately throw everything in the trash and grab the stuff off of their kids. See, I told you that you shouldn't be addicted. And I'm like, no. You're the drug pusher. You bought the drugs, and now you're ticked off that the kids are addicted.
Wow, that's a heavy statement.
You created this. Yes, but look.
No, I agree with you.
Well, there's no such thing as a perfect parent. And look, it is so desperate now. I've just stopped being nice. I mean, I hug them, but it's like, I'm nice when I say it, Jim, but the reality is you got to do something now. It's so out of control with TikTok alone. I'm writing a book just on TikTok and the LGBTQ, recruitment and the addiction levels with that is just off the charts. So what I tell the parents is you're going to have to sit the kid down and go, look, I have 2 apologies to make to you. One, I purchased these things and, I haven't been a good example. So apology number 1 is I'm just as addicted as you are, and we all know it. And I tell parents, look, if you don't say it, they will tell you.
Yeah.
So you may as well just admit it up front and say, look, I haven't given you, my undivided attention. And as a dad, look, I am gaming all the time and I'm on my phone all the time. We all know it. Apology number one, I have not led this family properly. And before God, I'm not your friend. I'm your parent. The buck stops with me. So my sincere apologies. I've got a lot of work on me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, look, God is so happy when we do this, as you know, and he's more than willing to help. So apology number two is, as your parent and not your friend, I bought the stuff. And my second apology is now I'm going to have to take it away. And I'm going to deal with my own stuff first. And then I'm going to deal with, as a family, my second apology is that I have to deal with this because I'm your parent and I love you. I adore you. I would take a bullet for you. And what I have inadvertently done is given you drugs in the form of digital cocaine and heroin. And now I'm going to have to take it away. And so that's my second apology. And for about 3 weeks, this is not going to be pleasant for any of us. And then after that, we're going to have to go an additional 2 to 3 weeks for neuroplasticity, for the brain to heal and to start to change. And so my sincere apologies that I, as a parent, did this. I did not mean to. I bought into it just like every other parent on planet Earth, where we thought we had to get this into your hands at the earliest age possible. Otherwise, you wouldn't get a job and all that sort of stuff. But there are solutions to all of this. And so what we're going to do is hit the reset button, and it's called a digital detox. And my sincere apologies for not modeling this properly, for being addicted myself. And now I have to take something away from you that I've given you, but I'm going to replace it. So for the next 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to plan a holiday in here. I'm going to, you can pick it. We're going to go do what you love. It cannot involve technology, but whatever you love to do, if it's the amusement park, if it's fishing, hiking, whatever, we're going to do tons of that stuff. And we're going to distract ourselves as a family. And we're going to all be in bad moods for about 3 weeks, but we're going to fight that. And then after about 3 weeks, that'll subside. And we're going to go through this book. That's what I would recommend, obviously, especially the second part, which is about maintenance. And we're going to come up with a family plan together based in neuroscience, based in medicine. And we're going to, with Jesus' help, and only with his help and his power, we're going to fix this by God's grace. So in a nutshell, that's the apology and then the solution.
So I love what you said in your book. You said it's not my intention to label all digital activities as digital drugs, but the truth is that many things that we don't consider harmful are. And the Bible says, I'll be mastered by nothing, right? So all things are permissible, but I'll be mastered by nothing. And so this is really important for us as parents to say, you know what, I've got a problem. So now I'm going to ask you a couple of specifics here, because I'm a little unclear on a couple of things when it comes to a digital detox. So are you saying, so do you replace the smartphone with a flip phone? Because because like in my household, for example, we don't have a landline. So how do they communicate in a digital detox situation?
The dumb phone is such a good option. And listen, these stats are going to be close. They're not right in front of me, but this is almost correct.
Yeah.
There are approximately 1.7 billion smartphone users.
Wow.
There has been a revolution back to dumb phones.
Yes.
And it's somewhere like 1.2 billion people have reverted now. So, we almost have, close to, it's over 3 billion phone users, but it's approaching half and half now. So there's a phone, for example, and look, I'm not endorsing this. I'm not being endorsed, but it's called Light Phone. And basically there's no smart part about it. You can make phone calls and you can text, and there are a couple other features that you would need for a business. But as far as the screen and all those things that are causing the addiction, it's not on there.
That's awesome.
And there are boatloads of people that have gone back to the old Nokia, was it 8110 or one of those?
Yeah.
Made it. And you can text, but look, with kids, texting is addictive for them. So you can't even have that. But listen, a phone call, what's the number one thing that parents tell me? Oh, I got them a smartphone in case of an emergency. And then I say, well, get them a dumb phone. They just put their head down and walk off, because they're not about to put up with their kids. They don't know how to raise them. most of them they're too engrossed in their own activities. They just don't want to deal with it. And so they don't. And so we need revival. And I'm going to show you some videos of that in a few minutes of why we need revival. But the whole issue, Jim, is that it all rises and falls on parents, and the dumb phone has to become a serious option. But that will take care of the emergency. That will take care. And so the next one that I hear is that, well, all of my students or child's assignments from school comes through WhatsApp or comes through Facebook Messenger, or they have their own platform, whatever it may be. And I'm saying, look, you're the parent. You have every right to go to the school and say, look, I appreciate the effort that you're doing to get these assignments to my children. And I don't mean to be a pain in your rear end, but listen, the fact of the matter is my child has emotional problems because of the phone.
Yeah.
So I'm requesting respectfully that you work with me to make a phone call or type it up, print it, and send the paper home, or send it to my phone. But there's got to be, you just got to, and I put this in the book, there are creative workarounds.
Absolutely.
You can figure anything out. And the school, if you tell the school your child is being harmed, I mean, they're afraid of certain buzzwords and they don't feel safe. Just
safe
words. And say, you don't want it to lead to bigotry or something. Oh gosh, I'll get it to you.
I feel like I'm being discriminated against because I have I have a flip phone.
Yeah, exactly. But just say, work with me to get the assignment. So you got to find the analog. The point is the analog workaround. So
yeah.
A dumb phone is essentially an analog replacement, because when you're talking to someone, even though it's a digital phone, by the time it hits your ears, it is analog. And if your eyes are staring at a smartphone, that's the problem.
Yes.
And of course, all the temptations. So there are workarounds for all of this. The communication thing has been well taken care of with dumb phones. And there's some really good options out there that put some business functions on there that takes away the addiction part.
What's the expense? What's the difference in expense?
I think the plan is probably going to itself. I don't know about the cost of the phones. The light phone, to me, who cares? If you just spent, $1,400 for a new iPhone, I can promise you the old Nokia is going to be a lot cheaper than that.
Well, I'm guessing it's got to be at least half, right? That's why I asked the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the light phone too, it's not going to be more than what you paid for your, Samsung, S22 Ultra. It's going to be probably cheaper. And the plans, without all the smart stuff on there, the SIM cards are not very expensive, but I can promise you it's not going to be any more than what you're paying now.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. So, you talked about education. We've seen a lot of changes in this country in the last 3 years. So my question is this: when you do a lot of work in South Africa, you're very collaborative over there. Have you seen a difference in the American mindset regarding the digital stuff as opposed to, let's say, South Africa? How are the people there? How do they respond to your message? Is there any difference at all?
Well, let me just show you. I just came back. It was November, like the 6th or something. But this is what happens when they advertise my arrival. And these are the schools. These are government schools, public schools.
Wow.
And I lead children to the Lord, and they're glued. So what happens here when they find out that I'm coming? I mean, I had one pastor, it's been years ago. He said, look, our congregation loves you. Just don't announce on your website or on the radio, because at the time I was on the radio. Don't announce what your topic is. He said, I know my people, they won't come. And he said, just tell them you're coming and you're going to bless them. And so the church was full that morning. But as soon as I started talking about the very things I'm talking to you about, it just created havoc.
Wow.
And so the difference is, and I want to show you something else. Several years ago, Jim, before COVID, I was at a large church in one of the cities. It's called Potchefstroom, and they really reach out to this university called Northwest University. So on the final night, I did 5-part series on pornography. Get this, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night. And the reason they had me do this is because they were having children being brought into the counseling department for porn addiction. Now, unlike here where you hide it, they just came out with it.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the week, they dedicated all that time to, we filmed it. That's where the Pornea series is that I have on my website. You can get it streaming on DVD, but we filmed it there because I would never get by with doing, that much of it here, or much less a Sunday morning. So I just want to show you a little clip from the Pornea series on the final night when I led approximately 600 of these students to the Lord. And then the repentance that was going on at the university. So here's what was happening during the altar time, the invitation time. Thank you for the hands all over this. So for those of you just listening, you can clearly see there's been an outpouring of the Spirit of God over about 1,200 people, and they're not moving hardly except with their hands raised. Again, it's incredible. And there's a manifestation of the Lord. There's conviction. Some of you are shedding tears right now. I want you to go ahead and cry. And there were tears, just genuine conviction. We call that revival.
For sure.
And whenever there's repentance. So what I'll do is I'll stop that, and I want to contrast that. Now, again, that, in all fairness, that was done pre-COVID, but I have video footage from just last month of another church where university students, same thing, to message on pornography and all this digital stuff that I do. Their hands were raised. The presence of the Lord was there. I came home last month and I went to a Christian college here in the States. I won't name it. They've had me twice. They're going to have me back because they really like me, and they asked me to speak on pornography, but I want to show you the contrast on how the students reacted just a month ago at the Christian college here. My wife was filming. She was filming from the balcony. And as I started talking about LGBTQ, they mocked me. They laughed at me. When I started talking about video gaming, they pulled out their phones. They were playing video games the whole time I was speaking. And you don't see any worship. You don't see any participation. They're just sitting there like lumps on a log. And this just goes on. And you can see them playing games. You can see them on social media. And that was when I was there before, 80% we estimated were on their phones. This time, I'm not sure, but you can see most of them were. And
these are Christian students, Christian school.
Well, it's a Christian school.
Wow.
Whether or not they're saved, I'll leave that up to you.
No, I hear you.
They were too hungry to God from I didn't look like it to me.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, look, and they do have percentages where they recruit non-Christian students to reach out to them, and I respect that. And I presented the gospel, but nobody heard it. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
You can clearly see what they were doing.
Yeah.
So that's a contrast. And so I'll just conclude with this, Jim. I did a split screen just to summarize this, no audio to it. So, on the left is the U.S. and on the right is South Africa. So to answer your question, that is same message. And there's the response from the two different countries. And it's not to say that, I will name one school here. It's not this way at every Christian school. I was out at Colorado Christian University and had a response similar to the one in South Africa. So I don't want to paint the whole country that way, but I'm afraid most of them are that way, to be honest with you. There's just a coldness. Not very many have that level of lack of respect, but because I would guess of the sheer number of non-Christian students that were at this Christian college, when I started talking about LGBTQ, there was a very negative reaction toward me. You could tell and it shocked the school because they asked me to speak about it. So they're going to have me back to deal with it in smaller groups. So hats off to the school. They want to do something about it. Most schools are afraid of their students, but this one's not. So I don't want to paint it as a total negative because it wasn't. The administration's behind me 100%, and they're concerned about what you saw. But that's the difference typically. And of course, here I'm no longer allowed in any public schools at all. Once, I showed you the picture there of the public school in South Africa. I go into public school after public school. They're just now starting to clamp down. So I was on my way to the school. I'll just show you the school. I was on my way to this school in South Africa, and we had a massive outpouring of the Holy Spirit, like I just showed you at the university. And I received this message saying, we've Googled you and we see that you are not pro LGBTQ. You are not allowed to talk about it at all. It's because the curriculum is just now starting to come into their government schools, like we're having the fights here. And it turns out it wasn't the administration that left me that message. Turned out it was a couple of gay teachers who just took it upon themselves to do it. It's always a small group that does that. But so there's this urgency for me to get, I'm writing a book now on identity for them to saturate the schools that I go into, because that's where the attack is. But that's another story. But that's the difference. They still have hunger there and in the Philippines. Australia's flat. It's dead. I'm getting ready to go back there as well. So, but I mean, I have favor. Don't get me wrong. They have me and I'm booked up solid, but it's compared to the countries, South Africa, the Philippines, and some of the countries in Asia, it is hard. It is hard here. I go away and get my batteries full. And I come home and they get drained. So,
yeah. Well, and you made an interesting statement. You've made it several times that parents are afraid of their kids. In your book, you wrote this: the majority of the world's value system is coming through the screens right under our Christian roofs.
Right.
Those phones, tablets, and computers are acting like a kind of Trojan horse, sneaking secular humanism past the gates of an otherwise godly home. That is a major strike against the Christian family, and I agree 100%. Our job is to parent our children. Men, if you are listening, you are the parent, they are the child. I don't know what else to say to that. You are the parent, they are the child. So I want to walk through a couple things because, some guys are listening to this. They're like, man, my kids are 16, 17, 18. Some are saying, hey, my kids are 6 months, 1 year old, 2 years old. So can you talk about this? Do you recommend weaning a family off digital, or do you recommend cold turkey, do the digital detox? What's your recommendation? You talk about this on page 156 of your book.
Well, the vast majority, I looked into that in depth with the clinics around the world, as well as here, the few that are here in the U.S. The vast majority, it's cold turkey.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, the clinics, there are 200. Well, Dr. Nicholas Kardaras says there are 400 digital detox rehabilitation centers in South Korea. I've been there. At the time I was there were 200. He says that's been updated to 400 now. So a lot of the research goes on there, obviously. And in China has a massive problem. The difference is, though, the government there just cut it off.
Totally.
But what here in the U.S., there's only one Dr. Kardaras, whom I respect tremendously. He's done a lot of fantastic work in this area. He believes in weaning, but let me explain the difference. If the electricity were to go out suddenly, Jim, there would not be enough hospitals to take care of all the detoxing people. So what my book is for families to walk through this journey together. And that's the model that my book has, because that's what most people would have to do. Because if you went to Dr. Kardaras's clinic, most people, unless you're very wealthy, you wouldn't be able to afford it. So yes, you could wean if you went there and there was a team of people, managing everything for you, all of your technology, all that sort of stuff. Weaning would work, but it would just slow the pain down, really. So what I say in the book, if you believe in weaning, because I get that so much and people push back, I say, fine. For the first part of the book, read these chapters and start your weaning process. And then I say, but eventually when you get halfway through the book, you're going to have to go cold turkey. There's going to come a point when you're going to have to go cold turkey. So if you think that will work for you, try it, but cold turkey is what's going to cure you, for sure. So that's what I recommend, is that you plan it and start your weaning process. It's because what you do, the beauty of trying to wean, I don't think anybody can, to be honest with you. The beauty of it, though, is that you're preparing yourself mentally. So you read these chapters, and you need to prepare yourself mentally. I think what you're going to find is it's a lot harder than you think. So you're going to say, okay, I'll watch just 2 episodes, and then 4 episodes, 5 episodes later, you realize, well, I just can't quit. There's just going to have to come a point when you just shut it off, and then you just grit your teeth and you go hunting. That's what I would do. I would just go shoot something. It targets anything. A couple of the neighbors' pets. No, I'm just kidding.
Only the cats.
Amen. So that's where we are with this, Jim. And I make no bones about it. This is for men. I mean, this is not for sissies. Detoxing is not for the lacy underwear. It just is not going to work.
Yeah.
And to speak to the men, because we are speaking to men, dads, if I could sell this to you, I just want to say what you saw in the video there, or what I was describing for those of you that are just listening, with all those, 1,200 kids with their hands raised. There's no greater satisfaction for a parent to see their child hungering and thirsting and walking in the ways of God. And the satisfaction of watching the giftings and the call of God come on your child, and to see God's destiny being fulfilled. You can make all the excuses as to why they should be able to play games a little bit and all that sort of stuff. But man, when you see, and I don't even have kids, but I feel like I've got about 1.3 million of them, Jim. And they come to me all the time. We've had them in our home, and I walk kids through, porn detox all the time and things like that. And even me, who I'm more of an uncle, but just to watch them flourish and to watch God get a hold of them. And when I finally detoxed, Jim, I'll tell you what I discovered. I discovered I could write books. And as a result of that, I'm on your podcast, #1 podcast on Spotify for men. I am going all over the world, and I'm just a little redneck from Virginia. And I'm serious. I discovered I could write books and people would actually read them. You know what my regret is, don't you? Why didn't I do this a lot
earlier?
Sooner? So with your kids, there are repressed gifts that God has put in there, and it's being repressed with digital noise and with addiction. And dads, if I could sell this to you, you man up and look forward to this. Don't dread this. This is not a bad thing. God's not mad at you. In fact, the dunamis power of the Holy Spirit will come on you to be a dad, to take care of these things. And there's this whole new world out there with God and then with your children that will just blow your mind. And how many of those kids that were in that auditorium that I showed you, say kids or college kids,
yeah,
they go home changed. I'm sure their parents are a bit freaked out, some of them, but the ones who've been praying for them for years, can you imagine what's going on in their hearts when they come home clean and they've got this whole new direction, and all of a sudden they're changing majors because they want to major in Bible now or something like that? Who knows? So dads, this is not a bad thing. I'm not chastising you because you're addicted and you haven't raised your kids the way you should to this point. The whole point of grace is the start over thing. And I've had to start over. That's how I can give it to you. And I wish I would have done it sooner. But dads, just, yes, get the lace off your underwear and all that. But look forward to it. Seriously.
Well, it's really interesting. I'm thinking about this and writing this down. When my kids were in high school, there are 3 sports or 3 seasons, athletic seasons a year, right? Fall sports, winter sports, spring sports. One of my sons played all 3 sports, all 4 years. Another one did all but 2. Another one did all but like 6. We had out of 36 potential athletic seasons between the 3 boys, my sons were involved in 31 of them. And we told them, if you weren't involved, one of the kids ended up doing something else active. It wasn't a sport, but we're just going, this is so important. And I think part of the problem with dads is, I think part of the problem is not dads, is families raised with no dad. That's a massive problem. But for those families where a dad is in the home, we have a responsibility to partner along with our wife and say, hey, listen, you're going to be an active kid. I was looking at that video of the American kids in the Christian school. I'm like, man, there's 3/4 of those kids were 40 pounds overweight. I mean, there's a correlation there, right? And so we have to help our kids to be their best version. And when we allow this Trojan horse into our house, and even off our last podcast about digital cocaine, my kids get mad at me now because I'm not available in the morning on the phone because I have my phone in my truck. And when I sleep unless my wife's driving home from the airport. She's a flight attendant. That phone is not there and it's off, type of thing. And then the other deal is the task switching. We were talking offline. I'm like, man, I've been tired lately. And I reminded, I've went back to task switching and not focusing on one task at a time. And so these are very important things. So here's what I want to do. I want to get in the brain of one of my dads. And they're going, okay, I've got kids this age, this age, this age. And you talk about this in your book. You talk about, okay, if you have kids at this age, here's what the screen time looks like. Would it be easier for you if I told you what you said, or if you just want to lay it out do you remember it? Because it's a huge book.
Yeah, just get me started.
I'll get you started.
And I had a doctor write some of that, if you recall.
Okay, yep, that's right. So you said this. Okay, Dad, you said, Dad, if you got kids in the home under 3 years old,
nothing.
No screen time. No screen time. Let that kid learn Spanish. Let them learn English. Let them learn French. Let them learn Portuguese. But no screen time. Okay. So 3 to 6 years old. Now, this is my granddaughter now. So you said no personal device or access, and only a single brief under 30-minute educational program once or twice a month. So walk me through why.
The reason is because their brains, as I mentioned earlier, are underdeveloped, and they are prone to hyperstimulation at a level that we're not. So they don't have the resilience to resist. So what is clear, there's a doctor, Christakis is his name. He did a lot of work in this area. Do you remember the old videos, Einstein videos? They were on VHS.
I was not a video or a gamer ever.
Well, they were old VHS tapes where the whole shtick was, you get these videos and you show your children these videos, and they'll turn your child into an Einstein. Well, here's what they found out about them. They were educational. They were educational. They were. But in order to hold the children's attention span, they were all quick cuts. So the child was not on any one subject for any length of time to actually learn. And because of the quick cuts, the dopamine levels were so high that they ended up getting addicted, and they were not learning anything. They were being mesmerized. Now, that was in a VHS tape.
Wow.
Can you imagine what Peppa Pig is doing? And so that's the crux of the issue with a child. So to the dad who has the children with all the various ages, the best thing that I could say to you is that hit the reset button with a detox, and then read the book and go through those ages that, Jim, you were just talking about. And really, that once or twice a month, if it were me, and the doctor that wrote that, by the way, I started getting these orders from Richmond, Virginia, and then I get this phone call from a doctor, and he goes, "You getting orders from down here?" And I went, "Yeah, thank you." He goes, "Well, after I heard you speak, when parents come in here and they want medication, I make them read your book." And then they have to,
I love it.
And then at first, and then they have to do what you say. And then I bring them back, and, fair enough, they need it. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it's all there in the book. So basically what I would limit, my definition of limit, to that once or twice a month for only 30 minutes would be a Zoom call or a Skype call or a FaceTime call to grandma. That's a legitimate use. But no education, because it's not going to happen. And so to say that they should never, ever, ever look at a screen, I would not say that. I think if grandma lives across the country, you should stay in touch with grandma and use FaceTime. Here's the illustration that I give, Jim. I've had boatloads of people come to me asking me, and this is what I put in the book, asking me for prayer for porn addiction, video game addiction, social media addiction. No one has ever come to me and said, "Brad, would you pray for me? I'm so addicted to Microsoft Word. I just can't stop typing." So there are some of these things like Zoom. We have a thing called Zoom fatigue. And that term was coined during COVID. No one really wants to spend any more time on Zoom than they have to, but this is a fantastic use of the technology, what we're doing right here. It's a great use of the technology. Nobody gets addicted. Nobody gets addicted to Microsoft Word. Only a handful of accountants have confessed to me they're addicted to Excel.
Oh my gosh.
I pray for them. But the average user, They don't. So what I do is I draw this in the book. I put you saw these graphics. There's pictures for people who don't like to read. So I put all these icons on there, or the names of the icons. You know, you got Facebook, you got Fortnite, you got Minecraft, you've got Zoom, you got Google Classroom, you know, you got everything, porn, YouTube, all these on there. And if I were to apply that verse that says, come out from among them and be separate, says the Lord. Do not touch the unclean things, and then I will receive you. I separate that screen with an animation during my presentations.
Mm-hmm.
And on the left are all the things that are causing the bad brain scans that I show, which would be pornography, Fortnite, Minecraft, on and on. But on the right would be Word, Zoom, the things that we get in, but we get out. Now, technically, you can get addicted, but typically they're not overly accelerating the dopamine production, but they are very useful. They will get you a job. They will record a podcast that will help, God willing, thousands and thousands of people. But it's the stuff on the left that we have to stop touching that are unclean. So that's how I draw that distinction. And so for a child, especially, even the good stuff, you know, a child, the problem, Jim, even with grandma, a child is so tender, their brains are, toward that screen. Mm-hmm. I would go so far as to say, and it's not going to be true for every child, most children are not even hearing grandma. They're mesmerized by that screen.
Oh, totally.
And the things that are going on. And so a parent would have to, if you can honestly say that your 3 or 4 year old, 5-year-old is actually engaged with grandma and having a deep conversation with her, I'd say let them use it for the 20 minutes that you're going to talk to grandma. But if they're just staring at the screen and wanting to poke at things, you know, and they're really not paying any attention to grandma, you shouldn't let them have it at all. I hope that gives you some guidance.
And I appreciate that, because I think our audience is in agreement, like 3 to 6 year old, no personal device and extremely limited. Now 6 to 12 year old, now you're getting to the preteen, you're still saying no personal device or access, which I personally agree with. I do not think a 12-year-old should have a $1,000 drug in their hand that they have full access to, that they did not pay for. They are not paying for monthly. And they have, first of all, it's a bad parenting move because you're spoiling your child. Second of all, you're getting them addicted to a digital drug. And so I appreciate this. You want to add anything more for the 6 to 12 year old?
Yes, I do. What I want to do is I want to show you some statistics, if I may. There were new statistics that came out in May of this year. Yeah, we're still in 2022. From Arizona Christian University, and I think it was their research department, but they came out with these stats. In the U.S., they did a deep dive on the state of our pastors here in the U.S. Only 37% of them have a biblical worldview now.
Oh, I would agree with that 100%.
So the numbers are very clear, but what is shocking is when the Barna Research Group and the Impact 360, which are Christian organizations that do research, when they researched the current group, Gen Z, the millennials, which many of them would be their parents, the numbers were absolutely shocking. So what I'll do is I'll put these up on the screen for you. So here's what came out from Arizona State Christian University. You can clearly see only that would be 100 little pastors there. Only 37% of them have a biblical worldview. So let me show you this. 1 in 6 of our Gen Zers now are identifying in some way with LGBTQ. And then as far as how many are now claiming to be atheists, and this is Barna, you're talking about 13% of the Gen Z are full atheists. Now, they all have worldviews, but they're just not biblical. But what is really disturbing is this one. Let me walk you through this one. This is the Barna and Impact 360 Institute. Of the Gen Zers, those born from 1997 to 2012, only 4% have a biblical worldview.
Wow.
Now, they have a worldview. It's not biblical.
It's intersectionality. That's what they're following now, right? So,
they're following, I mean, look, they're following, you name it. But this is why I wrote, they're under our Christian roofs. They're in our
Yeah.
Christian schools,
Yep.
but they're tethered outside. And so biblically, they have a worldview, but it's not a biblical one. So the millennials, those born from 81 to 96, only 4%, but it doesn't get any better. The Gen Xers, those born from 65 to 80, 1980, only 7%. And the boomers, those born from 46 to 64, only 10% have a biblical worldview. And so they're in our Christian homes, but because we've allowed them to be tethered, kids are on their phones an average of 12 and a half hours a day. That's an average, some more. And if you put them in their, if their devices in the bedroom, when they wake up in the middle of the night, that's what they're checking. It could go way high. So the LGBTQ, the reason why those students at that Christian college really, really mocked me when I started talking about the biblical worldview of LGBTQ is because even though they're at a Christian college, they are watching TikTok and Instagram, and that ideology has gotten into their spirit, Jim, in their spirit. They are attached to it in such a way that they didn't even have the respect to just be quiet and still agree with LGBTQ. They vocally, because what are you taught with LG and the woke crowd? You scream, you shout down.
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing. And so we have a terrible problem. And when you trace all of this back, it's social media, Jim. It's the phone. It's the smartphone.
Oh,
and so
it's that coupled with education. I mean,
exactly.
education plays a massive role. So we're running out of time here. So I do want to walk through this a little bit. So you've got a 6 to 12-year-old, no personal device or access. I agree with that. 12 to 14 years old, still no personal. So here's my take, man. I don't think a kid should have their own personal device until at least 16 years old. That's my personal opinion. So, and I think you agree because you say 12 to 14 years old, still no personal device or access, up to 2 hours daily for academic work. And then at 14 to 16 years old, you're saying, okay, and I would say more on the 16 years old. Hey, if you're responsible enough to get a driver's license, then you're responsible enough to get a job, and then you're responsible enough to pay for your phone on some level, right? So you can pay the monthly. If you want a flip phone, I'll buy the flip phone. If you want a smartphone, you pay the monthly fee. So you're I think we're pretty close to alignment here. What do you think about this 14 to 16-year-old?
Well, Dr. Ted Henderson was the one that actually wrote that.
Okay.
And so in his clinical practice, he was the one that saw me speak, started implementing my book into his practice. And I asked him to write the chapter on that, on how he is actually handling, because he's front line, so am I. But I mean, we're talking, at least I get to stay here for a couple of days and go hunting. He's dealing with this every single day.
Yeah.
So his take was what you just read, and I respect that. But what I have been recommending is what they do in Silicon Valley. Most of those guys out in Silicon Valley, not most, but a lot of the tech executives from Google, Apple, Yahoo, Hewlett Packard, all of them, they're sending their kids to Waldorf Steiner. And so they have no technology at the school until they're between 12 and 14. And then they ask the parents not to have it at home.
And these are the guys that are inventing the technology.
Yes, they don't. And that's what I recommend. So you don't have it at home. You don't have it at school. And then between 12 and 14, they introduce the things that will get them a job. But those are the things that when I painted that mental picture for you a minute ago, theater of the mind, the stuff on the right side of the screen, the Google Classroom, the Excel, the PowerPoint, things that you don't typically get addicted to. I mean, technically you could, but really nobody does. That's what they're teaching them so that, and I quoted in the book, it's those from Waldorf Steiner's own website, it's those kids that go back into Silicon Valley and run everything. And it's because their brains have been, preserved. So Bill Gates' daughter was only allowed 45 minutes a day, and once she became a teenager. So everybody's going to have a different take. If it were me, by the time they get into high school, meaning 12 to 14 years of age, I would allow them academic work, as Dr. Henderson said. But I tell you what, I would pay someone or do it myself to sit there and watch them, because their prefrontal cortex, this is where the brakes are. So in their brains, the dopamine is like the gas pedal. and it's, I mean, it's pedal to the metal, brother.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the brakes are up here. Well, they don't have brakes because we're not going to have those till we're about 25. And it takes an adult to sit there and watch them so that they don't task switch or multitask, where they're going to go off and look at their TikTok feeds and all that sort of stuff. If they were my kids, they wouldn't have TikTok or Instagram. They wouldn't have social media at all. They wouldn't have it. So there would be a computer that sits in the living room that, with somebody, whether I have to pay someone or between Beth and me splitting the time, whatever, I would just watch them. I would make them monotask. I would want to know what they're going to do on the screen for math, for English, history, whatever it is. And then once they're done with that, they're off. And it wouldn't be any entertainment. I'm just saying, I recommend no entertainment. That's where the problem is. The entertainment needs to be analog. It needs to be human to human contact. It needs to be guns, knives, tennis rackets, golf clubs. You know, soccer's not a sport, but hey, if you really need to kick something, kick a soccer ball. If football,
well, I mean, if you don't use your hands, I don't know how it could be a sport, but whatever.
Just don't know how it could be a sport. No, I just thought I'd throw that.
Well, but you know what's funny though, Brad, what you're saying, and this is, and you see this, you just see the body type differences in teenagers. You know, you're teaching your children to be active and not passive. Right. And here's the other thing, from a Christian standpoint, and you didn't address this yet, but there is a biblical stewardship component where we are responsible for the time we spend on this earth. And as parents with kids in our home, we are responsible for their time. And if they're wasting hour upon hour upon hour staring blindly at some screen, and I'd look at my own personal life, because we have a massive social media following. I'm very, very extremely limited on my social media. I'm just very limited in that because I've recognized that if I live on that realm, it kills me. So I have very limited blocks of time where I'm there. Right? Does that make sense? Because I realize, first of all, I can't task switch. Second of all, it can become a horrible, horrible time waster. And so this is something there's so much in your book, Brad, and I'm so thankful for what you do. We are like backed up against time here. So I'm going to just give you one final thing. Like, tell me one final thing that you want to say to parents, and then we're just going to bring you back on in a year from now and do it again.
Well, I appreciate that, Jim. Do this, parents, with yourself first, and then with your kids. Find out where their hearts are. And you do that by checking their phone and what their history is, especially their playlist. Go to the music playlist and then look at the lyrics. And then look at the apps that they have and observe them. Don't judge them, but just observe what they talk about. Just listen very carefully of what their conversations are. And you may have to eavesdrop because they probably aren't talking to you. But just listen, and then grab their phone, check their playlist, and look at their history. See where they're spending their time, and look at their emotions over time, and watch what they react to and how they react and why they react. And you'll find out where their intimacies are. And the goal is to get them to Deuteronomy chapter 6. That when you rise up, you're talking about the word of God. When you walk along in the middle of the day, you're talking about the word of God. And when you lay down to go to sleep, you're talking about the word of God. And the goal of every parent, by God's design and by God's instruction, is Deuteronomy chapters 4, 5, and 6, especially 6. And grandparents are included in that. I was fortunate that when my grandparents divorced, my parents divorced, my grandparents raised me spiritually. And I learned more about walking with God in the word of God, sitting at grandma and granddaddy's kitchen table year after year, day after day, than I ever did at Bible college. And that's how it should be. Now, we didn't sit around and talk about the Pentateuch and the JDEP hypothesis. It wasn't that. It was how to walk with God and how to know God and the scriptures. And that's what our whole lives centered around. That's what we've got to get back to. Not how close can we, you remember, Jim, when we were dating, we wanted to know how far we could go.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing with our adultery, with our devices. We want to know just how far we can go with our devices. And what we should be focused on is our intimacy with God and how deep in him we can go. And the rest of that will tend to take care of itself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There is so much here, dads. There's so much here for you to absorb. I just want to say this: if you're a dad with kids and you have not set boundaries or margins for your devices, it's not an option. You have to do it. I'll add one more thing as an assignment. My wife and I have open access to each other's devices. She can look at my device, I can look at hers, and our kids aren't in the house anymore, and our kids, they didn't have smartphones when our kids were in the house. That was just kind of happening, but you have to have open access to all devices, period. And so start there. Get anything written by Brad Huddleston. Guys, this is monumental, groundbreaking stuff. We've been trying to catch up with this digital age for years, and finally in Brad's work, we're catching up to it. So yeah, just how can these guys get a hold of your stuff, Brad?
Jim, at the moment, bradhuddleston.com. Everything's available at bradhuddleston.com. Soon things will be on Amazon. We're working through that. I'm published, so it won't be long before globally things will start to roll out in South Africa, Australia, and other countries. But for now, here in the U.S., bradhuddleston.com. And thank you for that.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on. And it looks like I'm on every year I get you on roll. So we don't want to have you on too much, but just enough so the guys, because this is some good stuff, man. And when I bring you on, it helps me because I'm like, oh, I forgot to do that, or I've allowed this to slip back into my life. So, Brad, you're doing some great stuff for the kingdom, brother. Sure appreciate you, man. And hopefully we'll be able to see each other face to face sometime.
Yeah, and I hope so, Jim, with guns in our hands instead of game controllers. That would be a much better thing. But look, I love you, appreciate you. And I sing your praises everywhere we go, Jim, because you are really on the cutting edge. And we really do.
Well, I'll tell you something, bro. It's funny. I mean, I feel the same way you do about TikTok, but we're like, hey, these people need Jesus. So we've got a video on TikTok right now on marriage. It just hit 5 million views.
That's good.
So we're out there in the belly of the beast, brother.
Yeah, you are.
Hey, God bless you. Have a great time, and we'll see you soon. Have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Yeah, thank you.
All right, bro. Have a great day. Bye. Hey, guys, thanks for waiting to hear the man law of the week. Our man laws are supplied mostly by you, and so keep hitting us up with those man laws. I also want to let you know that in the next couple months, we're going to upload my book, Man Laws, 100 Ways to Lose Your Man Card and Rules to Live By. This is a great book. It's funny, it's serious, it's contemplative. You're really going to love it, guys. So here's a man law this week, and it is this. If you are ever breaking a man law, don't ever offer up that you are breaking a man law. If somebody wants to say that you're breaking a man law, let them. But it's never your job to offer that up to anybody else. So the rule to live by here is be courageous even when you're in the minority. I love it. Hey, guys, make sure you head on over to my website at menandthearena.org. Grab your free copy of my book, Tell Them What Great Fathers Tell Their Sons and Daughters. And that's a great resource for you. And as you heard in our hero story earlier today, make sure you click the join our program button, get on one of our teams. Until next time, feel the wet sand on the arena floor, hear the deafening roar of the crowd, taste the sweetness of victory, smell the stench of battle, get in the game, get dirty, grind it out, and be a man.